Hello, everyone. Uh, it has been a long time, but we are back. Superhero with a Cane, episode 23. Um, my assistant and person, that technical advisor, Sean O'Grady, is on the other side of this camera, and he's the one that, thank God he's back, because now we could do stuff. Um, so today, I want to talk about something that's probably very familiar to a lot of people is MS and stress and how stress affects MS. Um, we know that just daily living, stress can be an absolute nightmare um, and its effect on us. But for those of us living with disease or illness or sickness, it gives it a new meaning, especially when you're living with multiple sclerosis. Your neurological system, your nervous system, is compromised. From your brain down through your spine to all your fingers and toes and limbs and everything, part organ in your body is affected by your nervous system. And how you handle stress uh, and stress's impact on you is gigantic. Um, so if if you have a form of MS that's relapsing remitting, going into secondary progressive, let's say, where you have periods that your symptoms are at bay. Uh, if there's a stressful situation that you're involved in or there's stress in your life, um, then that can cause a flare up, an exacerbation, um, a relapse, let's say. For those of us, I'm personally living with primary progressive MS, so I don't have these moments of, where things go away and then come back. I don't have exacerbations or flare ups. I have a steady stream of symptoms that I can kind of build my day around. Sure, it goes like this at times, but I can build my day around my symptoms and when to expect them. So the I'm stealing this from multiplesclerosis.net. I was reading an article recently about written by someone who talked about how you can there's two types of stress that you can predict and stress that you can't predict. So I think that's what it said. Yeah, uh, things you can control and things you can't control. So you know, yeah, that seems pretty basic. However, um, routine kind of eliminates all that, or not really. You can still have stress in your life. I mean, we're talking about there's financial stress, which has certainly been a burden for us and over the years, and then there's stress of just your living situation, stress of family and friends, the stress of we just came through the holidays, um, and depending on how your approach is to that can have an impact on how you're going to handle things. So, um, like for example, we just went through Christmas and New Year's. At Christmas, we had people here, living with primary progressive MS. Um, a lot of my issues are uh, cognitive fatigue. Fatigue is at an all-time high, and then I certainly have physical. And if the fatigue and cognitive can trigger physical, and the physical can trigger cognitive and fatigue. So if we talk about um, family being here, well, you plan, you know, I know what my routine is. I know that by that late in the day, as people come, I'm going to be sucking wind. Um, I just won't have a lot of energy left. And but then you still have to deal with. You know, I think we had 20 people, 25 people, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
And with our family, we have a very big family, and a lot of kids. And I'm used to, you know, at that point in the day, being able to just sit quietly. Got the TV on. I'm not. I know that I really can't think about quite a lot or deal with a lot. But then there's, you know, people. People are here. So for me, like my initial reaction is, you know, when I know this is going to happen, creates some anxiety and some stress where I'm like, crap, how am I going to deal with this? But then I plan on, I said, all right, let me uh, rest twice that day and make sure I go sleep for, you know, a couple hours at a time before people get here. And so I'm, as far as routine and being preventative, that's what I'm trying to make sure that I'm on top of what can help me get through this situation. Now, we certainly have the situation itself where then people are here. And I'm sorry, but there's no, that's where we're kind of like in the middle ground where there's no preparing you know, you can do all the preparing I can do all the preparing I want in the world, but the cognitive effect of the noise, the people, I don't do people anymore. I can't deal with a lot of people. I can't do a lot of noise, especially that late in the day. Things really have an impact on me. So my window of time gets smaller and smaller. And you know, it was fine. We ended up, you know, everyone, because it was Christmas Eve. Everyone, you know, left pretty early. I was able to get to bed at my normal time, uh, but it truly beat the crap out of me uh, for the next few days. The next day I was affected. The day after that I was affected, and I don't know why. I wish I could say, you know, oh, I just need to suck it up and get through it. It doesn't work that way. Um, you know, for me, the impact of maybe it's the cognitive stuff, the noise, the people, the being, you know, engaged at a time I'm usually not engaged with people, just beats me up. And yeah, the next several days I really felt the impact of that. Um, if you're, you know, and this is, I feel like I'm kind of going all over the place here. Um, it's funny because years ago, after I first got diagnosed, I mean, I certainly was living with symptoms for years, but there was a point where I got diagnosed. I wasn't even using a cane yet, um, and I could prepare for things. And you sit there and you're like, man, I'd love to be able to go back to that time because my symptoms weren't as bad as they are now. I'm not affected physically, and the fatigue and the physical are much more than they were years ago. I look at pictures from when you guys were little, and I remember the things we used to do, and I'm like, man, I wasn't even using a cane at that point. Except, you know, I was talking about stress. At the time, I'm thinking about, all right, what's my life going to look like in 10 years? How's my disease going to progress in the next 10 years? Um, and my stress was different. I mean, it was built around um, finding a cure. You know, is there anything naturally I can do to help, you know, myself? Is there some stem cell out there or diet that I could use that will help? And that's stress. It's different. It's different stress. I'm not saying that one is better than the other. It's just different. Um, and for those of you that, you know, right now you're sitting there and you're you're listening and you're reading about you read about stress and you're trying to see how you can prevent it. I don't know that you're ever going to prevent stress. I mean, even if you have the old plan on it and plan on making sure that you're ahead of it or dealing with what you get. I think you can plan on things to death and your stuff's still going to come up. Um, I certainly do my meditation in the morning and I exercise and I learned how to breathe and at some point I was involved in I'm still want to be involved in Reiki where I'm learning how to get my mind right and breathe right and be open minded. Um, so I do all that stuff to try to calm myself. Um, but when your window is small, um, it becomes difficult to stay ahead of things. I've got a very there's not many people that are up at 4:30 in the morning, and I don't have. It's not like the time from like 4:30 to 8:30, let's say, where I have what I consider the most energy. Nobody else would probably look at it that way, but I know that I can do things to a certain point, um, and it affects me differently than if I were to try to do that later in the day. Um, so I'm man, am I rambling here?
No,
All right,
I agree.
okay. What was I just talking about?
Like waking up, like you have the most energy in the morning.
Yeah. So if I could plan my life in a way where there's more people were up at 4:30 in the morning, then maybe I should make some friends on the West Coast,
Yeah.
or no, would that be right? Because they'd be earlier. So
Well, that
no,
would no,
that
because
would
then it would be like 1 a.m. for them.
yeah, forget it. All right, this doesn't work.
Well, maybe in like the UK or something, or Australia.
Well, Mikey's going to France. That is that. What time
I could
he's?
look it up.
Yeah, I think they're later. So I think he'd be up in France at a normal time when. Uh, hey Tony.
Oh, France is 6 hours ahead,
Oh, so okay.
so he's definitely up.
Yeah, so I'll be able to talk to Mikey when
Unless
he's
he's, I mean, it's 10 a.m. there, so I don't know if he's up at 10 a.m.
well. He'll have to be. Um, so I guess the whole thing is we all have different types. The biggest thing is routine. For me, I've learned that routine will help keep my stress to a minimum. What gets me out of my routine really screws me up these days. If you're not to the point where if you're still able to manage your MS because you have a relapsing form or something where you have periods where you feel good. Um, I'd say still routine will help you. Get ahead of this thing and make sure that you know your body, you know what sets you off. Um, yeah, and get ahead of things with your routine. And my doctor, I just actually saw Dr. Duncan yesterday, um, and he is big on preaching like you've got to stick to your routine. He told me that before, um, and I believe it. I believe that just it doesn't give you much of a what some consider a terrific uh, life where you're going out and doing things, but at least it keeps you alive and going. What's up, Tony? Um, and I'll just give one more example of how stuff happens that you can't predict. The other morning, Sean, you were I got up. I slept like for a solid 6 hours, but then I woke up at like 3 a.m. to go use the bathroom, and I saw your light was on, your door was open, and I immediately thinking like I know uh, you went to see Jackie, and I'm like, is he sleeping over Jackie's house? And I knew it was going to snow, so once that happened, I'm like, I tried to go back to sleep, and I'm laying there, I'm thinking about where are you? Like now, if I check my phone, that's going to be a trigger for me.
Yeah.
The cognitive therapist years ago taught me that the light from your phone, TVs, put it on. I go to the bathroom in the dark, for God's sake, when I get up to go to the bathroom. Um, all that stuff triggers your brain and says you should be awake. So I try not to do that. But your door was open. I ended up um, checking my phone. I didn't see a text. So then, your brain starts. I learned that when you're at when you're sleeping, you tend to go into panic mode easier when something happens because your brain is at rest. You're not engaged. So I learned that from the psychologist I talked to, and so then I was up. I literally within half an hour I got up, and then when I got up, your door was shut, and you were home the whole time. You must have gotten up.
What happened was I came home from Jackie's, and I was downstairs eating food, and then I put on wrestling for 3 hours, and I was up till probably about the time that you woke up.
And I swear to God, I ended up being panicked for absolutely no reason. You were home. Because then in my mind I'm going, because I think it was then it was going to, it snowed. So I'm like, there's going to be nobody to clear up the cars. So my mind starts going places where it shouldn't have gone. And I was worried about you, because I didn't hear from you. But then it ended up being such a waste of time. And I'm like, I got up at 3:30 in the morning for absolutely no reason.
Yeah.
And I'm worrying about stuff that didn't even happen. So, what I took from that is, I need to stop when that happens. I've been better at it. Stop. Don't react right away. Realize that, um, you know, things are probably going to be okay, um, and don't get so panicked. It's easier to say than do. When somebody tells you, "Oh, don't worry," what do you freaking worry, right? So, if somebody does that to you, it doesn't really help. But it did trigger. I did learn a trick from talking to my psychologist about the brain and how it works and things I can do just to not panic and worry, and because it does me no good. When I've got so many issues with fatigue and cognitive crap that and other symptoms that when I get stressed, all these things seem to worsen. So um, the plan of the day and the message is be routine oriented. You can prevent stuff. Um, Make sure you're ahead of the game. Plan, and that way, if you plan and something unexpectedly happens, uh, you can train yourself not to react to it in a negative way right away. Stuff's going to happen whether you plan or you don't plan. But I think if you plan and you're routine oriented, hi Mikey. Um, I think if you plan and you're routine oriented, you have a better chance of getting through it without having the stress hit you as great as it could. How about that for an ending? All right, I'm done.